Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Katie Romagnolo. Thank you for being here live. If you are joining us, interact with me in the comments. I would love to know your take on Mercury retrograde today as we dive into the details on what not to do in terms of how this may be affecting your business. Now, I always believe that our business is a reflection to our subconscious mind. The things that we're seeing in terms of results or lack of results are highly connected into what's going on in your internal world. So Mercury retrograde is something that can have quite a deep effect, and there's many ways that you can move through this for it to actually work in your favor. The biggest thing I want to touch on today is how there's a lot of hype about all of the stuff that happens being really destructive during Mercury retrograde, and that doesn't necessarily have to be true. So, I have found that there's a specific way to move through this energy when it comes to working the cycles of your lunar phase and everything that we're teaching here at Moonlogic in order to actually continue to boost your momentum. So, where are you sitting in terms of your knowledge with Mercury retrograde? If you're tuning in today, I have a feeling that you probably are wondering, how is it that I am not experiencing a whole bunch of destruction? Well, Mercury, let's kind of back it up for a moment or two here, is a time in which the planet itself, yes, Mercury, which is ruled by communication. So it really represents the entire way that our system, our society, our internal thoughts communicate. And the important part about this is the way that we process communication. So when we think about the planet itself kind of functioning and working normally like it does within our universe, and everything's got this orbit that's going on and working in flow, what happens all of a sudden when we've got this planet into retrograde is it can feel like everything gets slowed right down and starts actually moving in reverse. It's a very sluggish time in terms of what the planet represents. Now, when we think about communication, there's a whole list of ways that communication happens, right? We were talking about inside, how we communicate with ourselves, how we communicate with others. But when it comes to our business itself, it's all communication, right? So whether you think you're in sales or not, if you are showing up in service and looking to help people move through something and offering an exchange in terms of money or time in order to do that, then you've got to communicate what you do. Now, when Mercury is in retrograde, let's talk about how this connects actually into moon phases. So, one of the things that came through as a question this week that I absolutely love from Kim was, how is it that when I'm working through all of these moon phases and following the steps that each phase represents, when Mercury hits all of a sudden in retrograde, do I stop everything that I'm doing because we're told to avoid that there can be chaos that occurs? So let's talk about this in terms of step by step, which moon phase it might actually appear in. So, if we are talking about a communication type of slowdown or fogginess that may happen with retrograde, and we're sitting in our new moon phase, which is all about envisioning and feeling good and getting into that amazing feeling state. What do you think? And I want you to actually kind of work through this with me as almost an exercise here. What do you think could possibly occur in the reverse, in the stuck state, if we are sitting in a time of good feeling state? Maybe your internal communication might be actually chattering about something that isn't a good feeling state. So I want to really call your awareness into what are the things that we can actually shift and change when it's being highlighted during Mercury. So, okay, we're getting into this good feeling state. Mercury is about to hit into retrograde. We're realizing our thoughts have all of a sudden turned inward to say, those are things that are not good. You can't do this. Self doubt, all the things are showing up. It's really important to pay attention to what comes up during Mercury retrograde because it's not about avoiding. The thing to not do is actually avoid what's going on in this phase. What it is really productive to do is to face and look head on what is coming up during this time period. So, one of the things I love to do is actually mark out in my calendar when Mercury is going into retrograde. It's usually for about a 3 week time period. And I have in the description notes here below the next 3 dates in terms of when you're going to expect this to occur for 2023. So, you can put it in your calendar, start date, end date. Now, during that time, that is not your excuse to avoid communicating or avoid doing anything in your business because everything's going to go awry, as we like to hear for some reason in social media, in all of the different things that we get in terms of news. What you're going to do instead is you're going to look at what phase am I in? Okay, is it new moon? Is it first quarter? Is it full moon phase? Is it third quarter? If you have no idea how to know when that phase is actually occurring, then you're going to want to check out the free moon calendar that updates every single month. The link to grab it is in the description as well. And you're going to get the time blocks as to when these are occurring. So, first, okay, we're sitting in, for example, new moon phase. We're realizing our thoughts have all of a sudden kind of turned to mush. And I'm thinking, I can't do this. I can't do all these things that I'd love to do. I'm not really finding anything that feels good to think about. There's not a lot going on in my life. It's all about doing the opposite, looking at where is there a communication breakdown or challenge or struggle happening specifically at that exact time. If we're sitting in first quarter moon phase, where it's all about taking action. So, this is often the phase in which I'm suggesting for entrepreneurs to be doing your launch. It's a very action oriented energy. But if you're planning to do a product or service launch and Mercury retrograde is coming in the month that you were planning on doing it, first off, try and maneuver around when it is that you're actually doing that launch. Because if you're going to allow it to fall dead set on that first quarter week of action when this communication sort of awryness tends to happen, then you're going to notice collectively people may be responding differently to what you're putting out there. People may be getting triggered by things that are not necessarily triggering because it's all about their own unique experience and what's coming up for resolution in regards to communication. This is what Mercury retrograde is actually for, to highlight, kind of like during that full moon phase, where we get a highlight of what's coming to the surface in order to resolve or let go of. Mercury does this like a spotlight on communication in our lives. So we've got different themes that will definitely run throughout the different time periods of Mercury for itself. And sometimes people will, go down the rabbit hole and looking for what is the theme that this particular Mercury retrograde is all about. I want to instead pull you back and really encourage you to listen to your own intuitive information here. Notice again, okay, when is that time period? We've got one coming up in April for Mercury retrograde. Which moon phase is it going to hit on specifically? It's going to be that new moon phase. It's going to be for about a week in new moon phase. Then it's going to transition into the first quarter moon phase, all about the action. Notice, write down, do a journal. This is where I'm feeling struggles or challenges in communication specifically. Could be technology, could be internally, could be outwardly as you're talking to people. It could be within your family dynamic or with your partner. Watch for the communication because it's trying to be spotlighted. So, avoiding doing your launch necessarily at that time, but not avoiding doing the work that's coming up. The biggest thing not to do during Mercury retrograde is avoid what's coming up. Because here's the beautiful thing that will happen. If you actually look at the theme that's showing in your life, looking at the time period, what it's connected to, and you make the steps to resolve what's going on. So, say we're sitting in first quarter moon energy, it's all about the action. It's all about, saying yes to what's showing up in your business and attracting new people in and checking things off your list. And Mercury retrograde is here. So, it's feeling like my computer's not working. I'm trying to send an email and nobody's even able to open it. The link's not working. These are the things that you're going to hear traditionally with retrograde. So instead of planning to send all those emails and do all those things on that list and do all that action stuff in that time period, you're going to look at, okay, this is a chance for me to allow to see if there are any things to come up for resolution to do with communication. You're still going to be in that list oriented energy, but it's not about the launch and the sell. Instead, the list is about checking off what's showing up. Is there challenges that you're finding in a certain area in your business? Look for the spotlight. Use this to your advantage to find what's being spotlighted for you. Now, one of the huge things that can occur really, really powerfully during retrograde is if it occurs with full moon energy. Again, that full moon is always about bringing to the surface the highlight of what it is that wants to be moved through. Oftentimes, we're in a big celebratory type of energy as well with the full moon phase. And it is a great time to make connections. If you find, here's the really, really cool part, that if you're doing the work while these different phases show up, while the retrogrades are showing up, if you're doing the work and you're sitting there and you're realizing, I don't know, like I'm experiencing Mercury retrograde and there's really nothing that's going on. There's no chaos in communication. There's no breakdown in terms of what I'm trying to say to somebody and what they're receiving, what they're hearing. None of that's going on. Here's what's happening. You actually are not being impacted by the theme of that retrograde. That means that you've done the work in that area of your life. It doesn't need to have a spotlight on the challenge or the struggle. So it's really important to see, are you moving through these retrogrades and noticing chaos happening in your life or your business? Are you noticing that certain ones are like, I don't know, I didn't even realize anything was going on. There was nothing of funk in my life. This is a really powerful tool of internal communication for knowledge to know where it is exactly that you are in any given moment. So, first thing is, do not be afraid of Mercury retrograde in thinking that it's going to cause a whole bunch of destruction, that you got to avoid all the things during that time period. Instead, look at it like a resource tool. Decide, okay, I know that I'm going to mark it out in my calendar to say that during this particular 3 week time period that there is, something that might be highlighted in communication. It's allowing you to know, not to avoid, what could possibly come up. Look for it. Then you're going to chart out, okay, it's actually going to occur during which moon phase, because each moon phase allows for a certain energy to be coming through. You're going to have an interaction in a different way. You're going to notice there's certain things that will really highlight for resolution, that you'll find opportunities to get that resolution during that full moon phase. You're going to find that you want to do something during first quarter moon phase. Don't let the doing necessarily be pushing getting something launched, so that the connections aren't necessarily firing because Mercury is interacting with us in a different way, but instead use it to say, I'm going to figure out why there's a communication breakdown going on here with my partner. I'm noticing that I'm saying, like, I need you to do this, this, and this, and this. And they're saying, hey, I want nothing to do with that. What's going on internally? Look at the lens of communication during these particular times. So there's always going to be a theme. There's going to be a running theme that shows up as a whole during each retrograde individually. Look for what that theme shows up in your life. And when you do, you're going to notice that you either have done all of the work on it and it's not a problem. It's not going to show up during retrograde next time. Or if there's a little bit of upheaval that's going on in your life, work on specifically identifying how it is that you can create clearer communication, that you can internalize your thoughts and process things in a different way. You're going to look for all the ways to find resolution. So it's not about avoiding, it's actually about identifying and using this as a lens. So when you're thinking about, okay, how do I know all these things again are going on at what time? What do I do? I love to offer resources. So again, make sure that you're checking out your free monthly moon calendar that has a link in our descriptions here. And if you want to get some more in-depth details about, okay, well, like when the moon phase is this and the Mercury is this and this is going on, I love to hop into my private group and give more detailed information, like right at the moment that it's happening. So if you want to join a really loving, amazing community of all heart-led entrepreneurs, check us out. It's a private Facebook group and just has the most amazing vibe and a ton of free resources continually. If you want to bump it to the next level and really start looking at, how do I utilize this stuff in my life, in my business? How do I learn to navigate this on my own with feeling like I understand the information? Then check out our Moonlogic Magic School. It is a very easy yes in terms of the cost for it. It is so super easy to navigate through and gives you all of the information you need each and every moon phase and what to do, what not to do. So stay tuned with us here next week. I am live every Tuesday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, answering your questions. If you have something that you're wanting to know that you can't seem to find the answer to, pop it into the link that is in our description here as well. It is absolutely free to drop your questions in. You can do it anonymously as well. And if you enjoyed this video today, if you think somebody else might need this information, that they're having a little bit of chaos going on Mercury retrograde, then go ahead and send it over to them. Like it, give us a comment, let us know your thoughts. And thank you so very much for being here today. I look forward to seeing you next time.